Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We got a special Thursday morning edition, 8 a.m. edition. That's here on the West Coast. Back on the East Coast, where my guest King DV is from. It's 11 a.m. It's a little bit better, but coffee edition, Eagles Week edition, Game of the Year edition. So excited about this game. I wish it was Sunday already. But until then, at least I've had some great Eagles folks to talk to this week. King DV, probably my most frequent guest on the show that I've had, and definitely one of the coolest. That's not a coincidence. There's a reason for that. He's an Eagles fan, but he's not a super homer. Kind of like the way I like to think of myself. We're both, I think, pretty realistic about our teams, and so that's what we'll chop it up and talk about. But you can find them at King DV Sports on Twitter and X. And as far as YouTube goes, the link is in the description for the show, so you can just click it. But it might just be at King DV Sports there too, right?
Yeah.
Let me take a look, and I'll start watching you on YouTube as well.
But yeah, I'm not a homer at all, man. But I'm not just bigging up my team and that's it. I'm more like critiquing my team. What can we do better? Just how the team is flowing this year. This year we are more so, what can we work on? We haven't played our full 4-quarter game yet. It's always been the second half. It's been the tale of two halves with us all season. So I'm not really a homer. But once again, thanks for having me. Also, on top of that, we're back at it with a big, huge matchup. This last time it was an NFC Championship. This time it's, a fight for the first seed, first seed in NFC. So, both teams look good. San Fran got our guy Hargrave, picked up Chase Young.
Yes, sir.
By the trade deadline. So, they was already, a force, but now they added more depth, and that's just good for them. But at the same time, man, I do want to realize, like, what are some things that you look for the Eagles to try to do against you guys? Like, what are you guys' weaknesses? Let's start there.
Yeah, let's dive in real quick before we get to that. Remind me if I get distracted. But real quick, we've got Twisted the Jigga says, "Sup, DV, go Birds." Clearly an Eagles fan. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Nancy Cameron, the first member of TED Talks Ball, the official. So yeah, I did, since last time we talked, I did monetize in the first level of monetization to get super chats and channel memberships. So Nancy was the first one to buy in on that. So thank you, Nancy. Thank you for being here. And thanks to everybody who helped me get to that point. Now we just got to push to 1,000 subs so I can get that ad revenue going as well too. Right. But also got a sponsor, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show. We got Mitch Kofsky in the house.
Hey, what's going on, Mitch?
Yo, what's good? Mitch, of course, runs the Hardcore Sports Network. And he was on a little earlier this week. We had a lot of fun. That was our first time going live together, I believe. And he's a good guy too. I would say definitely not a homer. Very realistic, no doubt about it. We had Gavin Brown in the house. He popped on earlier with me this week on Monday when I was on with Pedro for my I Voted for Pedro weekly show. That's a riff on Napoleon Dynamite. We came up with the name of that show. And Gavin's very well-informed and has some strong opinions, and one that we disagree on, I'm sure we'll get to during the show. But we'll talk more about that. But welcome, Gavin. Always glad to have you here. And don't be shy about, nobody should be shy about disagreeing. We're not here looking for an echo chamber, people to tell us we're great. We want dissenting opinions as long as you're, somewhat respectful. That's the ideal situation. Otherwise, how will we ever know when, the last thing I ever want to do is spread bad info. So for the Niners, for weaknesses, unfortunately for the Eagles, some of our weaknesses have dried up a little bit recently, or at least they appear to have. You never know until you play a really quality opponent. And I don't really feel like, the Seahawks kind of are, but they were missing Kenneth Walker. They were missing one of their offensive tackles. The Bucks clearly are not a quality opponent, and the Jags, I think they are, but I think they just had a bad day. I think they just we got healthy and we were kind of pissed off after losing 3 straight, and we had just gotten Chase Young, and there was like this whole torrent, this maelstrom of things came together, and the Jags just were the unlucky people who are on the other side of that. I wish we had played the Eagles that week. Let's put it that way, because I think we were really firing against the Jags when we held them to just 3 points. But some weak spots, and these are things that I've been talking about. We may have talked about this during the offseason, let's be honest. Right tackle, with losing McGlinchey, he's not doing great in Denver, but he wasn't ever a great pass rusher, pass blocker, but he was always a really good run blocker, and that's where our right tackle is not very good, McKivitz. But McKivitz is probably a better pass blocker, or close to the same. I'd say probably a little bit better, which isn't saying much. But then right guard is a weak spot for us. Spencer Burford is a second-year player out of UTSA. Last year, he platooned a lot with Daniel Brunskill, who moved on to the Titans. And he actually missed the Seahawks game, and I was actually kind of glad because we have John Feliciano, who you may know from the East Coast, from the Bills, from the Giants, especially from the NFC East. I'm sure you know him, from the Giants. He's a pretty good lineman, and especially to get off the street. He filled in for Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks got injured briefly, and he filled in, did pretty well. And then Aaron Banks got turf toe and missed 2-3 games. And Feliciano filled in really well for him. And then right as Aaron Banks came back against the Seahawks, Burford had a minor knee injury, maybe like a real minor, the grade 1 MCL sprain or something like that. They didn't really just say, but ultimately he filled in there against the Seahawks. He did have a penalty, but other than that, he played pretty well. So I'm kind of hoping that we maybe platoon him and Burford, because we definitely want to develop Burford. He's young. He's still kind of growing into his NFL body, if you will. But at the same time, we don't want to have a huge deficit at right guard while we develop him. So maybe we could platoon them there. That's definitely a weak spot. So the right side of our O-line is a weak spot for the 49ers, which is the side that was kind of weak last year when Hassan Reddick came in. The one thing that is better is we don't have Tyler Kroft anymore. He was the one who gave up that block on Reddick. And ultimately, he it's not like he whiffed Reddick either. He held him for a little bit of time, and Purdy just didn't pay attention to the pass rush, which he does that. He just gets locked downfield, and he's kind of oblivious. And it's something that we love about Purdy. We call it poise, and we call it, focus and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it can scare you to death too. So let's get to some more of these chats, and then there's more weaknesses, of course, on the 49ers. Yeah. So we got the mayor. He says, "What's good, family?
What's going on, mayor?"
Says, "Fly Eagles fly." The Smitty says, "Niners."
He was trolling us yesterday.
Oh, nice. But he's on your channel, so I'm guessing he's kind of trolling. Oh no, he's saying 41-20 Niners. Wow, that's aggressive. That's aggressive.
I don't know who fan of, but I know that he was saying the Niners.
But it's interesting because the Smitty, wouldn't you think Devontae Smith?
I said that last night. I said that last night too.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But welcome, and thanks for being here, the Smitty. The mayor says, "Gammon, I'm following you, man, until the game is over." Look out! He's keeping him undercover on the on the chats here. Fly Eagles fly. There you go. Twisted Jigga says, "Are you confident in your secondary, Ted, if Jalen has time to throw?" I mean, anybody with time to throw is going to worry me against our secondary. I feel a little bit better. And now, what is the story on Goddard? Is he still on IR? He's definitely not playing, or
we really won't know until until today. They was pushing for him to actually play this game. I knew that he was supposed to be back the Dallas game, which is next week, but this game they was trying to push him to play. So we won't know anything until practice today.
Yeah, let's just wait for Dallas till Dallas, right? Dallas Goddard, that is. Yeah, that'd be fine with me. Also, wait to sign Shaq Leonard until after this weekend. That's fine too. I heard him say he was going to take this weekend to decide. I was like, yes. And I figured he probably would, even if he signed, he probably wouldn't be ready to play this weekend. But that's the last thing I wanted to see was Shaq Leonard, aka Darius Leonard, previously known as Darius Leonard. He's had some back issues, but he's a hell of an inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Great. Would be a great addition for either the Eagles or the Cowboys. So that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, as far as our secondary goes, okay, so that's a weakness of the 49ers. You know, obviously we invest heavily in our D line. We obviously have Bosa. We have Hargrave from y'all. We picked up Chase Young, and then Armstead is sort of the fourth guy. He's not as glamorous as the others, but he's really good against the run and a pretty underrated player. He makes a lot of money, so maybe he's a little bit overpaid. You might say $17 million a year, but you know, our D line is stacked, especially a starting D line. Depth gets a little shakier, and then obviously you got Fred and Dre at linebacker. Easily, arguably the two best pair in the league, and then you know, secondary. Gibson is a hell of a safety at free safety. Someone we picked up from the Bears off the street. Crazy pickup. Played really, really well for us last year. Almost retired. Decided to come back. He's been playing at a really high level. He's kind of this weird thing of like, you know, a lot of times, you know, you say someone's a ball hawk, right? But a lot of times when you call someone a ball hawk, you're like, oh, but they also get burned a lot. Great examples are Trayvon Diggs and like maybe Marcus Peters is another one where they get a lot of interceptions, but they also get cooked a lot. Gibson doesn't get cooked, and he's a pretty good tackler too. But at the other safety spot, we had Talanoa Hufanga, but he tore his ACL against the Bucks, and so he's out for the year. And so we've got a rookie, Jair Brown, filling in. He was Penn State. He was our first pick in the 2023 draft. We moved up to number 87 overall to get him. And see, it's funny to say move up to 87 for your first pick, but that's because of Trey Lance, because of Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. We had burned our first, second, and third picks. And so we were dealing with a bunch of third-round comp picks and later in last year's draft. So the funny thing is, though, is that he is so similar to Talanoa Hufanga. In other words, like they're both slow. They're like 4.6 guys, but they're both they both play with a lot of anticipation. So they actually play fast, even though they're 40 times or slow. They're fast in game speed. They're both big hitters. They're both ball hawks. Now they do give up kind of the big plays. They're unlike Gibson, where they do get interceptions, but neither one's particularly good in coverage. They're both really good blitzers, and they both hit really hard. So far, it hasn't been a huge drop-off. Now, I do think that against Eagles is a time where you might see it, especially like the leadership of Talanoa Hufanga. He was one of the enforcers on the team. It was sort of like, you know, Dre, Greenlaw, maybe Fred a little bit, but Dre more than Fred is a big hitter. Jimmy Ward was a big one. We lost him to the Texans in the offseason as a cap casualty, and Talanoa Hufanga were like the big three to kind of get people fired up. So now we've lost two of those three. So that could be something that might show up on Sunday. But, you know, one of the biggest weaknesses the 49ers had throughout the season was Isaiah Oliver playing nickel corner. And we've pretty much benched him. He plays a little bit here and there. He was very good on the line of scrimmage and run fit and tackling. But, like, if you put a speedy slot wide receiver on him, one step and he was never going to recover. And he never did. And people just cooked him all season long. So there's a few things that happened around after we lost the 3 straight games. There are 3 big things. Well, 4. But the biggest to me was moving the corners up to the line of scrimmage and getting us playing press man, because Charvarius Ward, our cornerback 1, is a press corner, whether it's man or zone. We want him on the line of scrimmage, jamming your receivers coming off the line of scrimmage. If he's a few steps back, he's at a big disadvantage. And we were playing this kind of almost prevent defense with Steve Wilkes, our D coordinator. And it was, and if quarterbacks were patient, they could cook us 4, 5, 6, 7 yards every time. because there was, they hadn't gotten to the corners by then. And so the two biggest things to me was Isaiah Oliver off the field, cornerbacks on the line of scrimmage. Then obviously Chase Young, huge addition to the D line. He and Bosa have this special relationship from OSU. We call them the Buckeye Bookends. It's really exciting to see them play together and feed off each other. And they have a great competition where they both want to be the best, but they also want the best for each other too, not at the expense of each other or the team. And then the fourth one was Steve Wilks came down from the booth. Robert Saleh, our first coordinator under Kyle, now the Jets head coach, was a sideline guy. Same thing with D'Amico Ryans. Now he's the Texans head coach. He was a sideline guy. And a lot of people said, oh, we got to get Wilks down from the booth. I was one who said, maybe not, where there's plenty of guys who are good from the booth, like, Vic Fangio of the Dolphins is a great example, or Dan Quinn, Falcons and Cowboys now, another example. And some people just don't have that right personality, like Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, these rah guys are very fiery and emotional. And they were showing Wilks in the booth on some of these plays, and like the defense makes a big play, everybody's jumping around, jumping for joy, and he's just like stern and solemn. And like I was thinking, oh, that could just rob the joy on the sideline. But it turns out it's worked out well so far. So I'll say I was wrong at least so far about that. But so we moved Lenore, who was our CB2, from the boundary into the nickel. And that's been big. And then we've brought in Ambry Thomas, who's been a liability along with Isaiah Oliver, but he's been playing well. So, knock on wood. But Ambry Thomas is probably someone you could pick on, maybe Jair Brown. So those are probably the two weakest spots in our defense. Otherwise, I just saw a stat, though, that our defense is number one in the league. Baldy at least said it. I don't know. So I quote tweeted it, and I said, tough scene for the Fire Wilks crowd, because I was one that said, don't fire him. I said, give him a little time. He's learning the system. And also, I was saying, as long as Isaiah Oliver's in there, I can't get too mad at him. And people are like, well, Isaiah Oliver's his guy. I'm like, I know, I get it. He brought him in and everything, but I still think he needed a chance to replace him, which he pretty much has done, and see what happens then. And so I feel pretty good that I was pretty right on about that. But I've been talking for a while here. So let you go, and I'll start playing some of it. Also, I want to make sure people know we're streaming to both channels. So if you're on TED Talks Ball, make sure you get over to King DV Sports and give DV a like and subscribe. Same thing if you're on King DV's channel, pop over to me to TED Talks Ball, give me a like and subscribe. If you're on a browser, open up two tabs. You can watch at the same time. Just make sure you mute. That's what I got going on. I'm watching both shows right now. And then I guess that's pretty much it. So thanks in advance for all that. And then I'll try and show all the chats. I may not respond to all of them, but at least I don't want people in your channel to feel like they're missing out on what people in my channel are saying, and vice versa. So there's a lot there. So dive in wherever you like, DB.
Strengths and weaknesses, man. Strengths and weaknesses. First strength is basically Jalen Hurts was actually hurt in the season. Everything that we went through up to this point prepared us for this game. Jalen Hurts wasn't able to scramble like he was with the bruised knee. It was effective. It was, and he became a pocket passer. And I think that his accuracy came back from last season. He got right back into that rhythm. So that helped us out a lot. Also, the running game from Swift and Jalen Hurts is back. We can start running a little bit of RPO. Some things that we tried to hit you guys with, we did hit you guys with in the NFC Championship. That was successful because we played off of Fred Warner. We did not really try to challenge the offensive line because they knew their job was to control Nick Bosa and those guys. So we did a fine job of that. I don't know if that's going to be the game plan this go around, because you got another edge rusher in Chase Young that we got to worry about. And, Jordan Mailata, he's a level of concern for the Eagles me, myself, and the Eagles fans, because he's given up so many sacks, so many QB hits. And, for him to try to be one of those guys, and just like the Kansas City game, he said he was taking it personal, but he was giving up a lot of QB hits. And, we can't go for that, right? AJ Brown, started off hot, man. Just what 5?
Historically hot.
Yeah, and 125 plus yards. That's in the history books. But he slowed down recently. He does have that thigh injury. He's going to play through it. But I feel like that this should be the game that we're going to try to test him out, especially if Dallas Goedert is not there. I wish Dallas Goedert did play this game because it would be a big help against y'all pass rush and y'all blitz, and it opens up the playing field for somebody like Jalen Hurts to pick his spots. Um, on the opposite side of the ball, it's more so our linebackers. I know everybody's talking about our linebackers. Right now, we have 2, maybe 3 healthy linebackers. The third linebacker is not even active in the 53-man roster as of yet. We lost Zach Cunningham. We still got Nicholas Morrow, and also we still got Christian Ellis. We're not too fond of him. That's why Sean Desai, our defensive coordinator, does play the 3 safety sets and drop down the safety to play that linebacker. We also got Nolan Smith, who since Derek Barnett went to the Texans, he's getting a lot more reps. So, he might want to see, he's on record saying that he want to hit someone. That's the PG-13 way of saying it. But at the same time, he wants to play. And what better way to put him into the fire than this game? I mean, he did play last game against the Bills, and he had some productive plays. But at the same time, you want to get this guy the reps that he needs, man. He fell to us for a reason, and he enjoyed playing with his fellow Georgia Bulldogs. So why not give him those reps? As far as pickups, like Kevin Byard was a huge pickup, man. I took him a little bit to get the playbook down. He had interception against Patrick Mahomes. He did a good job against Travis Kelce. The thing that's going to motivate this secondary is going to be the offseason hype, the drama. That's what's hyping them up right now. It was a lot of talk about James Bradbury being trash by yours truly, Debo Samuel, Tyshawn, whatever you want to call him.
That's right, Tyshawn.
And then Brandon Ayuk actually came and chimed in a little, not too much, but just a little, because his name got brought up by Debo Samuel, basically saying that he had a separation on James Bradbury, whereas though James Bradbury, he heard everything, but he's not trying to feed into it. He wanted to be on the playing field, whereas though Kevin Byard, the new guy that's coming in, he's basically saying it's probably going to be a bloodbath. It's a lot of animosity between both teams.
I saw that. I was like, geez, Jalen.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be a bloodbath. I'm gonna be in attendance at that game. Actually, I'm going to that game. It's gonna be probably light rainy game. My thing is we need to control the clock, and we also need to contain. I can't say stop, but we can contain Christian McCaffrey. Just contain him on the run and everything. Avoid the Debo Samuel thing from happening, whereas though out the backfield he's running Brandon Ayuk. I feel like that we got to have somebody with him. I think it's going to be our slot corner. I think it's going to be him. But yeah, all in all, man, the secondary has been questionable. They've been playing well in big matchups, against the Dolphins. We played well. Second half of the Rams game, when Cooper Kupp did come back, we played well. Kansas City, we played well, regardless of how many drop passes they had. Played well against the Bills. They didn't really do too much. It was more Josh Allen, and we didn't know how to tackle him or stop him. But I think it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be defense first, and then whoever makes the play, whoever has less turnovers, I think that's who's going to be victorious in this game. I just think that coming in, a lot of people question because you guys are coming in as the favorites, 3-point favorites, and we're at home and we're 10-1, and it's like it's more so y'all the favorites because we know how y'all are healthy. When you're not healthy, it's not the same. But when you're healthy, away or home, we know how you guys are. So we're not taking this game lightly. It's more so we gotta control our emotions because of off-season talk. And even no, it was right before the Super Bowl. That's when it started. And you just gotta control your emotions, go out there, play football, give a whole complete 4 quarters. That's another thing. Our weakness is that we adjust slow. First half, we'll sit up there and be like, yo, this is not the Eagles team. But then we go into the second half and then we're playing like the Super Bowl Eagles team that, we know how we can play. So that's the thing. We played a tough defense, even though they were out without 2 cornerbacks in the Jets, but that's a good defensive mind. We played the Patriots, good defensive mind. The Vikings had a good defensive mind, and the Buccaneers, regardless of their record, Todd Bowles is very good. So that's what I said. Everything that led up that we went through, and half of us at 10-1, and we found ways to win, brought us to this game. I think this is going to be the game of the year. I don't know if we're going to face each other again in the playoffs, but I do see this as the game of the year. They said that about Kansas City, which was underwhelming, honestly. And the Bills, they said that about the Bills as well. That was great because of the comeback. But this is going to be one of those games where it's going to tell you like where both teams stand in the NFC, and then how we're going to move forward on standings.
There you go. Nice. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. We both had some big intros there. That's awesome. There's some stuff going on in the chat. Somebody asked about if I am on Twitter. Yeah. So my handle is right here at TedH6. And that actually works on YouTube as well. Or you can type in Ted Talks Ball on YouTube. Either way, you can find me there. But yeah, so if you're looking for my Twitter handle and you want to talk some smack on the timeline, I'm down. Bring it. I would say it looks like there's quite a bit of smack being talked in the chat. I noticed some things. There was some talk about our 3 losses. Well, first of all, there was some talk about who have we beaten. So we've beaten the Steelers, we've beaten the Cowboys, and we've beaten the Jaguars. Are all solid playoff teams right now. Other than that, you play who's on your schedule. So, as far as the teams we've lost to, with the Browns, CMC got dinged up, Debo got injured, Trent Williams, CMC left the game, Debo left the game, Trent Williams stayed in, but he was playing on one foot. He had a sprained ankle and he missed 2-3 games after that. So when you lose, 3 guys like that are not only the 2 best offensive players on our team, or the 3 best offensive players on our team, but these are 3 of the best offensive players in the NFL. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the NFL, period. Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL, period. And Debo is the best wide back. There aren't a lot of wide backs, but here's the thing about Debo. You get the ball in his hand. There's nobody else you'd rather have with the ball in their hand than Debo. Because, they talked about, I don't know if you guys watched on Thanksgiving, but they talked about like how demoralizing is it for a defense where the guy just never ends up on the ground. The guy's always standing at the end of the play, whether he's inbounds and they blow a whistle or he's out of bounds. It's really difficult to get Debo on the ground. And so he'll just run over people. So those guys were missing for all those 3 losses. They got injured against the Browns. They're out against the Vikings. CMC played against the Vikings, but he was playing through an abdominal strain, a rib, injury. He fumbled. He lost a fumble in that game. But the biggest thing with the Vikings, so also with the Browns game, so we're missing all those guys. We're not playing well. But guess what? At the end of the game, Purdy drives the length of the field, and he gets us to within a 41-yard field goal. And our rookie kicker, Jake Moody, misses. So, all right, how much are you going to pin on our team when it's a rookie kicker making a very makeable field goal? At least in other places. Cleveland definitely has swirling winds. There's some reasons for it. It's a notoriously difficult place to kick, but I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to say it was a rookie kicker. All right. So with the Vikings, we lost to the Vikings. Yeah, it was primetime Kirk Cousins. I saw that comment. But Kirk is a good quarterback if you can protect him, and he can pick you apart. And the biggest thing that he's been missing is a defense and an O-line. And, the one time he had a good defense, he ran into us in the playoffs in 2019 when we had a better defense and a better run game. Jimmy threw the ball to Kendricks once. He intercepted, threw it 2 more times to Kendricks. He dropped 2, and Kyle shut him down. In the second half of that game, Jimmy only threw 4 pass attempts against the Vikings in the second half, and then famously only threw 8 pass attempts in the whole NFC Championship game. So 12 in the last 6 quarters leading up to that Super Bowl against the Chiefs. So Kyle just shut him down. So, I don't really blame Kirk Cousins for losing to us there. And then the other thing to know about the Vikings game was Purdy threw 2 interceptions, but he got a concussion before that happened. So that changed my whole view on those interceptions at the end of the game. And then against the Bengals, this is the first game this season where Burrow was playing like Burrow, and he shredded us. He's 28 for 32, 3 touchdowns. He was running with power. I mean, the guy was there at Levi's, and the guy, he was just, it's funny because all offseason, Kyle said, oh, Brock Purdy's the real deal. And we're to win now to develop Trey Lance and things like that. That's why there's so much pressure on Purdy, even as a guy who's just kind of completed 1 season worth of games recently. But, after that game, I tweeted, Joe Burrow is the real deal. That guy is a real deal elite quarterback, right there with Mahomes and, in my opinion, Josh Allen as the top 3 quarterbacks in this league. And anyway, bottom line is, so those are those 3 losses. The Bengals have not done that well this season because Burrow's been out since, pretty much. I think he got injured the next game. And before that, he had been playing hurt with a hurt calf most of the season, and they struggled offensively. So saying, you lost to the Bengals, when we look at the Bengals, all right, when I looked at the season before the, our schedule before the beginning of the season, I circled 3 games. I circled Cowboys, Bengals, and Eagles. Like, these are the 3 Super Bowl contenders, bona fide, from 2022 that I thought would be Super Bowl contenders in 2023. And I still say that if Burrow is healthy, the Bengals might be. But clearly the Cowboys and Eagles are. And, I thought the Ravens might be, and I thought the Seahawks might be as well, too. We'll see if they can ever get healthy. I think I said it backstage, but they're missing Kenneth Walker on Thanksgiving and their offensive tackle. So maybe not the best, their offense didn't score a touchdown against us, right? When I was watching with some people, with family, they were starting to get nervous. And I said, I'm not going to get nervous till their O actually scores a TD. But anyway, that's a lot. But I'll start going through the comments again, and I'll let you respond, King DB.
So yeah, a lot of people are speculating, basically saying that, just how, somebody brought up you guys' losses. It's more so that we're barely beating teams. Now, when is going to become to a point where it's not we're barely beating teams, is more so that we're beating teams that the national media, probably Vegas, probably said that we're not going to beat, the Miami Dolphins, for instance, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, the first time. They saying that we're not going to beat these teams. They even had us losing to the Jets before Aaron Rodgers got hurt that first week. They had us losing to the Jets as well. They did not look at us as the same team from last year because we lost 11 free agents and we lost both of our coordinators and they became head coaches. Right now, we're standing at 10-1, regardless of how you crumble it. We're not blowing teams out. We're not stat padding. We're not doing all those things. We're sitting up here finding ways to win and really finding ways to win with injured secondary at one point. We had James Bradbury in the slot, which was god awful. That was a god awful move. Then you had Jalen Hurts. He's playing through his injury. It was just a bruised knee. Yeah, that takes about 4 to 6 weeks to heal. Then we got Rashad Penny. Well, I wish he played this game, but I wouldn't want him to play this game because he will come out rusty because he only had 3 carries in the Vikings game. After that, you didn't really see him like that. Dallas Goedert is hurt. We're finding ways to win without guys. Lane Johnson didn't play against the Bills, and we still put up 37 points. we was able to score 37 and get the running game going as well, running away from going to the weak side, I should say. But overall, it's just more so like it's just matchups. Honestly, it's matchups for these teams, man. You could talk about who we played. Last year we went through it. They had say we had a weak schedule. But now since we're winning, now it's basically a reason on why we're winning. It's what the teams aren't doing. Why aren't the teams that are losing to us get the fault of them losing, the drop passes, Tua not being able to read the Eagles defense in the second half, Dallas Cowboys just not being able to close out of games and just making like hideous mistakes to the point where this is why they're not really in the football world, like content creators and everything. They're not really talked about like the San Francisco 49ers. They're talked about because they're America's team, yes, but they're not talked about as going far. A lot of people don't believe they can go far, but they think that they can beat us for the NFC championship and championship the number one seed in the NFC East. And I don't think so. I really don't. It's just a lot of hype. It's a lot of hype at the end of the day. But I always said, and we said this last year, our two teams are significantly the best in the NFC. And that's basically what it is. And this is why this game is so much of an importance. Not because of the off-season talk and everything. It's more so that we're trying to see where we stand at. You guys want to see if Brock Purdy does play all 4 quarters. What's the turn up? What's the turnout? We want to see basically where we stand with the new coordinators, with these new guys, our rookies. We got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, who are beasts, man. Jalen Carter, they just said, I just read on Twitter or X that he's number 1 in pass rushing and defensive tackles. Not pass rushing, run defense, run stop. And that just says something about him, because last year he was out for basically a month, maybe almost 5 weeks. And Jalen Carter, he's very disruptive in the middle. I just want to see how a game of this magnitude, because he just came out and said that he'd be ready. He wasn't here last year, but he'd be ready. I think a lot of our guys are motivated about a matchup. We know who we facing. Kyle Shanahan, hell of a coach. Not taking anything away from you guys. I really believe that we come out focusing on George Kittle and focusing on Brock Purdy / CMC, just to fill it out a little bit, and then Sean Desai may make an adjustment. It's been working for us all season. I can see him doing that. Would I want him to do that? No, I don't want him to wait until halftime. I want him to start in the second quarter. The first quarter is one of those, shake the cobwebs off, the nervousness, whatever, and then you get deep into the game in the second quarter. But yeah, I just think that it's really no excuse on why we winning. It was excuses last year on why we were winning because we were playing lesser teams. But when we're beating the teams that we're supposed to beat, now it's an issue. Our quarterback, what? I don't even know the record, but he has a high percentage playing teams over 500 and beating them. So you got to give credit when credit is due. That's what you got to give. And at the end of the day, whoever comes out on this game, yes, I would be pissed off if we lost, but it's not the end of the world. But I'm real confident. I'm real confident in my guys. I gotta be. We were 10-1. And I think that we could come out with a victory. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a hard fought game. And I don't know how much the weather will make a difference, but it's going to be one of those games that we got to, really stay focused on 4 quarters. We can't let, give up turnovers like we did previous weeks. And we just can't make too many mistakes, win the penalty battle, win a turnover battle, and then also win the third down battle. That's basically what we have to do. And we have to make sure that Brock Purdy is uncomfortable. it's a lot of things that go into the keys of victory, but I get to that. But overall, the Eagles are 10-1 for a reason, and for Cowboys fans or anybody else besides possibly the San Francisco 49ers basically saying that they're better. I don't see any other team that can actually be up there with us but the 49ers. So we'll see Sunday. We'll see Sunday 425. See where it goes. Hey King, Seahawks fan here. Are you hearing about anything?
Yeah, so he's a Seahawks fan, but he's actually a cool guy. I'll vouch for him. You hear anything about moving Thursday night to Monday night? Can they even do that? I didn't even know they could even do that. But
they could do whatever they want. I don't know if it's the Seahawks game he's talking about or
yeah, he is because he's a Seahawks fan. So next Thursday. Oh wait, no wait, this Thursday. No, so maybe Sunday to Monday. That makes more sense. That I can hang with. Yeah. So that makes more sense. Have you heard anything about that?
No, not at all. I mean, they've been talking about the game coming on tonight, and we shall see.
Yeah,
but
Seahawks Cowboys, big game tonight, no doubt about it. Huge. 49er Lifer in the house. He says Nick Winkler is 11-0 on the Niners game schedule. He has the Niners losing this game to the Eagles. Someone else mentioned 60% chance for rain. I think that's a huge thing for us. I guess we'll see what happens as we draw closer to the game, but a lot of times those get pretty accurate within the last few days. But I know East Coast weather is notoriously fickle.
Yeah.
But, also he said, but also Nick Winkler picked the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. So all week I've been saying Niners 20, Eagles 17. And I would probably flip that if it's raining pretty hard. Because Purdy, the one thing about that Browns game was it was raining pretty hard. And Purdy did not look good in the rain there. He did not look good in the rain last year in the playoffs, the wild card game against the Seahawks. First half, I was there at Levi's, and it rained, and he struggled. And then the sun came out in the second half. The ball dried up, the field dried up, and he torched them, absolutely torched them. And as bad as he torched the Seahawks in the second half of the wild card game, it would have been even worse if Ayuk hadn't had a big drop in the end zone too. So that could be, for me, like what swings my prediction for the game is the amount of rain. If there's a lot of rain, the other way I expect that the Eagles would win would be if it's like a really close game, back and forth game. I think that the Eagles have won a lot of games like that this season, coming from behind, whereas the Niners, it was mentioned in the chat, we're really a front-running team. Well, a lot of times we'll get a team down, and then once we do, it plays right into our defense and everything. But we haven't won any close games this year. Every game. Now we've crushed some really good teams like this. The Cowboys scored 10, the Steelers scored 7, and the Jags scored 3 against us. So, and the offense, we were like 30 plus in every single one of those games. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not the Jags. I forget. I think it was them too. Anyway, bottom line is there's a chance that we just get out ahead and never look back. I think we'll get out ahead, and I think the Eagles will close the gap. And if it's dry, I don't think you guys will quite narrow the gap, and we'll win slightly. And if it's wet, I could see trouble. We had trouble when Purdy couldn't throw in the NFC Championship game. All he could do is that sort of shot put after he hurt his UCL, and it's not that bad when it's wet, but it's definitely not what he looks like when it's dry. And somebody said something about noodle arm Purdy in the comments, and I would just say, I made that comment in January. I said something like that. I said something about dink and dunk in the preseason because he didn't throw any TDs in the preseason. He didn't throw any deep balls in the preseason. But ultimately, I always disagreed with the dink and dunk and noodle arm with him because he's always been a really good medium, mid-range, 10 to 19-yard ball thrower. Like I think he had 80% completion rate last season, 10 to 19 yards. I think he's even higher this season. And but also he's throwing some really good deep balls now. And so I don't really care if he has a weak arm. If he's throwing good deep balls, that's all. Not all. I also like lasers into tight coverage, and lasers, off platform, which he's not going to do. So I've always said that he's limited height, limited arm, limited top speed. And I'll stick by all three of those. But I am starting to say it may not matter. And I'm starting to get ready to have to use the E word, the elite word. I've been really careful not to call Purdy elite. I haven't called Jalen Hurts elite yet either. But they're both, to me, knocking on that door. Same thing with Lamar. I think if all three of those guys keep playing well, I'll have to call them all elite. Also, the elite QBs right now are a little bit depleted with Rodgers out. Although now it looks like he's almost coming back. It's crazy. And but with Burrow out too. There may not be 5 elite QBs in the NFL right now. That's usually my guideline is top 5 for elite when I say that word. But that was a little stuff I've been seeing. Also, just real quick, want to call out. Let's see here. We had a few new folks in the chat. We got Wheezy, the dreaded Eagle. Welcome, Wheezy. We got Ty Alston in the house. I met Ty at the Bucks game. We both sat in the gold mine with the 49ers Faithful UK. There's about 36 people from the UK, Ty, me, John Chapman, who's another big Niners content creator here in the States. And I think it was supposed to be Breezy, but another buddy of John Chapman's was there. A lot of fun for the Bucks game. We cheered our butts off. Bryant Culp in the house. He has a YouTube channel, and his wife does too. Check them out. And I'll just start at the bottom and start working my way up here. But I'll let you respond to all that I just unpacked there.
Oh man. First thing, Jalen Hurts is elite. I don't even know why we even have to question this. He's elite. First of all, he basically took it. It's probably not because of the passing, but what he could do to win ball games with his legs, his mind, his throwing now, he worked on it. We went to the Super Bowl. Now we're back 10-1. That's history too. We made it to the Super Bowl the next year. No other team really in the past, I think since the 50s, didn't come back and have that type of record. So, just Jalen Hurts-esque, he's just a winner. He's a winner. And, for how can we say if he wins the Super Bowl, is he elite then? But we're saying Joe Burrow is elite, and Joe Burrow did the same thing that Jalen Hurts did, but with better weapons in that time frame, and until we got AJ Brown, of course. Joe Burrow is. I wouldn't say. I think he's a little overrated. I don't think he's A listed yet. I think he's more of the B side because it shows. It really shows on what he can do now. Can he pass the ball? He can pass the ball, but not to put Jalen Hurts up there where this guy has a good winning percentage. He's basically carrying the team when the team doesn't really have no hope. And just pulling out wins, man. I knew last game that just off the recent things that happened, that if he had a shot in the OT that we was going to win that ball game. He was going to drive us down the field and win that ball game. He was not going to sit up there and allow. How do you sit up there and have 1 touchdown and have a 7-point passer rating in the first half and then have 4 touchdowns in the second half? And you jump up. I think his QBR was like 1 something in the second half. Like, he does whatever it takes to win. He's basically a comeback kid. He has to be elite at this point. What more does he have to do for him not to be a top 5 quarterback? I seen a list, not before you go. I seen a list. They had CJ Stroud over him. They had the 3 guys.
Yeah. Kurt Bankert.
Yeah. Then they had 3 guys that he actually beat over him.
Yeah. Well,
I can understand Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, of
I
course.
can't understand Josh Allen, because my argument with that is, since he's been in the league, he leads all active quarterbacks in interceptions. He hasn't won anything but MVP. So I cannot sit up there and say that he's elite.
Well, here's the deal. Not all interceptions are created equal.
Facts.
And there's a couple ways that I talk about that. One is a lot of Josh Allen's interceptions are arm punts, right? Where it's 3rd and long, he heaves it 50, 60 yards downfield. If his Diggs or whoever comes up with it, Gabe Davis, it's this huge play. If not, it's an arm punt. It's a punt on 3rd down if they intercept. So there's that. And then there's also like, there was a really interesting stat that I saw earlier this season that really drove it home for me, which is like interceptions versus interceptable balls, because there's a huge difference. You know, and I'll use it to knock Purdy, because Purdy had 4 interceptable balls, and at one point he had no interceptions, right? And Josh Dobbs had 8 interceptable balls, no interceptions. Mac Jones, 14 interceptable balls, only 4 interceptions, 10 delta, so 10 that he got away with. And then you look at some poor bastard like Matt Stafford, who only had 3 interceptable balls, so 1 less interceptable ball than Purdy. But instead of 0 interceptions like Purdy, he had 5 interceptions. And it's like, man, that's a huge difference, because his receivers tipped it and the DBs caught it. So I think Josh Allen's had a few of those too. It's definitely not great to lead the league in interceptions, but you got to remember what you're asked to do. And it's also, when I look at eliteness, I don't really go off of QB wins, right? I'm not saying QB wins aren't a QB stat. They are. I'm just saying I don't put like all my eggs in that basket, because I think Matt Stafford, who I was just talking about, is a great example of that. 12 years with the Lions, 0-3 in the playoffs, 1 year on a Rams super team, 4-0 playoffs, Super Bowl ring. Then his O-line falls apart, 5-12. And they're still kind of struggling. What are they, like 3 and whatever they are, 3 and 5? I said 5-12. They were going to run it back. I think they'll do a little better than that. But I'd be surprised if the Rams shocked, I would say now, if the Rams make the playoffs. So same quarterback, vastly different results. And that's the whole thing. Like Jalen Hurts has the best O-line in football. You know, we could argue that the Niners and the Eagles have the best 2 weapons groups in the NFL. I think the Niners have the best group of weapons, but I think the Eagles are right there, especially with Dallas Goedert healthy. And then, you know, Eagles defense has been really good. Whereas like with Joe Burrow, he has no O-line, let's be honest. And his defense, they're fine, but there's never been as good as the Niners or the Eagles D, at least not, you know, in playoff time. And I think the Eagles D will be good by playoff time. So even if they're struggling a bit recently. So that's the sort of thing with these elite conversations, is like, people are like, oh, it's not fair to say Purdy has to win the Super Bowl to be elite, Ted. And I'm like, with this team, it is. With this group, with this defense, with Kyle calling the plays, with our, you know, I'd say best group of weapons in the NFL, you either got to win the Super Bowl, Purdy, or some people have to get injured and you got to win with less, you know, or they got to go away, you know, like we have to pay him. Inevitably, we're going to lose players. If he can win with less, then I could call him elite. But
with Burrow, you know, that's not on Burrow's legacy that, you know, the organization failed him from surrounding him with an offensive line or anything like that. He still had some weapons. He had
great weapons. The best group of wide receivers probably in the NFL.
Right.
But like the reason why I give the Niners the edge over the Bengals in weapons is because we have Kittle and we have CMC, we have Juice. So like the overall, I count, you know, running backs and fullbacks in weapons. Anyone who can catch a ball, and Juice and CMC are great receivers. So,
and then just to, you know, go against what you just said, that put Jalen Hurts in a certain place. You know, yes, he didn't win the Super Bowl yet, just like Brock Purdy didn't win the Super Bowl, but we both got 2 elite teams all around the board. And for him to sit up there and keep pulling off these wins and keep doing the things that he's doing with this team, and this team is rallying behind him, just like the 49ers are rallying behind Brock Purdy. You know, I heard Deebo Samuel, I heard Brandon Ayuk, you know, I heard Kyle Shanahan. He came out and said, we got the most confidence in him, and, you know, we're going to go as far as he goes, period. Jalen Hurts got that respect from all our veterans, everybody in the organization, and this is why we paid him. And now he's winning ball games. So it's not Jalen Hurts' fault that he's put in a situation where it's a team around him. It shouldn't be a fault of that. Now, with Joe Burrow, yes, he's going to get criticized for not taking the team to, another playoff run or whatever like that. But before he got hurt, obviously. But that's on the organization. That's not on him.
Right. I'm not blaming them for it, either way. I'm just saying it comes into my evaluation. I consider all these different factors. I consider coaching to all the different things. The way I look at it, like DV, is like this. Like I'll stick with the Niners because I know our team. But wait, real quick. One thing that so first of all, I think Jalen Hurts is more elite or closer to being elite than Brock Purdy. First of all, he's just got a bigger body of work. But also what he's done recently, where he didn't have the best offensive line in football, probably with Lane Johnson out, right? And Dallas Goedert out, then definitely not the best group of weapons overall. You could argue who's better when we're all healthy. But without Goddard, no way the Eagles have better weapons than the 49ers when we have Kittle. So Jalen has done more recently, I think, to sort of establish that argument, I would say. But for Brock Purdy, one reason I argue heavily against Brock Purdy being elite is just look at what Jimmy G did when he left. He was doing, if you look at Jimmy G and Purdy's stats with CMC, they're eerily similar actually last year. Purdy was a little bit better, and Purdy got a little bit more help from the defense. He scored more points partly because he got 2.4 turnovers, generated by our defense for him, compared to Jimmy G only got 1.2. So that covers up a lot of the 7-point differential. But bottom line is, you look at what Jimmy G did with the Raiders. He left. All of a sudden, he's leading the league in interceptions when he's played one less game than everybody else. That's really bad. But on the flip side, he's also leading the league in not scoring touchdowns, which is really also really bad. And so it's hard to evaluate a quarterbacks, until you see them with a different system, from one system to another. And we had the rare chance to see both of them in the same system with the same players. At least Jimmy had CMC for 4 games and Brock had him for 5 last year. And so that gave us a really good head-to-head. Obviously, you don't play the same opponents, but it's still they were closer than a lot of people wanted to admit. Now, the good news for us is Purdy's playing better this year than he did in 2022. And so we're doing really well. Our offense is up there. So with your guys' offense, I just feel like the difference in the game is our defenses, because I feel like there's weak spots on the Eagles. I think you talked about it, but I feel like linebacker is a weak spot for the Eagles. You definitely talked about that. But I don't know if you talked about, you said Bradbury in the slot was a mistake, but I feel like Bradbury in general is at least from people I've talked to this week, have been saying they have concerns about Bradbury this season in general. He obviously had the big interception against the Bills, but other than that, like he might have been slightly a liability recently. Or what do you think about that?
I would say, yeah. The team that we had last season benefited him a lot, and this is why he was an All-Pro. It benefited him a lot because up front helped him with the pass rush, and it now is bad at balls and everything, and it just make it easier in the timing, throwing the timing off of the quarterback, wide receiver, and it was able for him to recover and make a play. He did take a step back in speed, and this is why you see him get beat most of the time, especially in good route running. We face some good route running wide receivers. The slot was a bad thing because he doesn't turn quick anymore, to the point where he can't keep up with the CD Lambs. He can't keep up with the Justin Jeffersons in the slot. We got Bradley Roby now, and I think that Bradley Roby could, because he likes to play man-to-man in the slot. But at the same time, James Bradbury, he's not that type of guy. He's more of a cover guy, and showing the side what he does, especially knowing about the speed of the outside cornerbacks. He's trying to play off a little bit and play between the 20s, and it's almost like a prevent the big play type of scheme. But yeah, James Bradbury did take a step back, but the last couple of weeks he has been playing better. He had 5 pass deflections against the Bills, also that interception you just talked about. But I think this is the game that's going to make his season, because of the trash talk and everything like that. A lot of people are human, and they need that motivation to get back to what, playing football like they known to play football. And I think this is the game that we're going to be watching to see, if James Bradbury is that guy. If he's not, then we got to move on. A trade deadline was rumors that we were calling the Broncos to try to get Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain would have probably got traded for a James Bradbury, because
we tried for him too, I think,
yeah,
and Jalen Johnson on the Bears too.
yeah, and yeah, we did try for him and it didn't fall through. I know James Bradbury understands it's a business, but at the same time, he got to play better. He really has to play better, and I know that you guys, especially if Brock Purdy has the time, y'all going to attack that side with James Bradbury and Reed Blankenship on the back end. I know they're going to attack that side, but Sean Desai has to also know that too and get his guys ready, especially this upcoming practice and going forward into the final practice before the game. I just want our guys to stay focused on that side because that is a level of concern, James Bradbury. But I think mentally he should be ready, especially if he's lined across like somebody like a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. Try to make it so that those type of things that they were talking about don't happen again. And being called trash, that's an insult. And I think that he'll be more motivated this game than any game that we played this season. Just hearing everything.
There you go. It makes sense. Freddie Jr. said, what about Trey Lance? He was in the system, couldn't get it done in Shanny's system. Well, Freddie, how many starts did Trey Lance have? I think it was like 3. Maybe 4 at the most, if you count the game he got injured against the Seahawks where he played less than a quarter. And how many of those games did George Kittle play in? 1. George Kittle played in the Texans game, and Lance won that game. How many games, Freddie, did CMC play with Lance? None. 0. Mm-hmm. Lance never played with CMC. And CMC is a huge, absolute difference maker in this offense, in this run-first scheme. He is the V12 that makes Kyle's system roar. So, to judge Trey Lance on such a small body of work, you're fooling yourself. He's a bust for the Niners because we moved heaven and earth to get him, and we traded him away for peanuts. As far as the NFL is concerned, he is very much TBD. He could very much have a Geno Smith or better type of situation. So don't get me started on Trey Lance, but bottom line is he is TBD. And people go, he's third string on the Cowboys. Well, yeah, he missed all of camp and all of preseason other than 1 game. So he had no time to learn their system. I have no doubts that he will displace Cooper Rush by the beginning of next season. And eventually I think they would like him to take over for Dak, ideally. But, Dak's obviously been playing well recently against bad teams. Tonight against a little bit better team will be interesting to see how he does. And, of course, next week against the Eagles, if he can do our dirty work. So there was some talk about that. Is this, this isn't a playoff game. It's a regular season game. But yeah, if we beat the Eagles tonight and the Cowboys beat the Eagles next week, then we're in first place and we're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed and have the NFC Championship at Levi's. Here's the one thing that I would caution 49ers fans, and I would say don't get too bummed out if you're an Eagles fan and that happens, is Ravens Christmas Day, man. That is going to be a BITCH for the Niners. Mm-hmm. They are playing really well. And what you may not know, and this was early before the season started, I predicted the Niners 11-6. And before that, I had been as high as, higher, but I right before that, I had been at 12-5. And what knocked me down a game was this Ravens game because Niners are -20 rest days this season. Worst in the NFL. We have the least amount of rest in the entire NFL. But the Ravens are +9. So they have like 29, close to 29 by Christmas. There'll probably be a few after that too. But, close to a month of more rest in this short season for the Ravens. And that was before they were even playing this well that I thought they might upset us at Levi's. So now I think there's even more of a chance of that. So if the Niners win and the Cowboys win, I still see a chance where the Eagles end up with number 1 seed because we end up coughing it up, due to the Ravens. So we'll see.
And
that's
on the
big.
flip side,
big.
So at a flip side, if the Eagles win and the Cowboys win, then we had that 11-1 and we still got that gap. Going into the Cowboys game, we'll just be looking, to secure the NFC East. Honestly, at that point, because you beat the Cowboys, you sweep the Cowboys, and then you head to Seattle, and then you got the Giants, Cardinals, then the Giants. That's the last 3 games of the Eagles schedule. So, we can make it out.
Cake, super cake, and cake.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But it's divisional games.
So,
I get the Giants. The Giants is a little different for y'all than maybe for other teams because it's divisional, and you just never know in divisional games. They almost beat you guys last season, right?
Yeah. Well, no, we swept them. We swept them last season, but yeah,
almost one of the games. Wasn't one of the games really close?
It was one of the games. One of the games, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll say, in the beginning of my score prediction for the Eagles, I had 14-3. I had 3 teams beating us. I thought that, just coming off of the higher emotions of the Super Bowl that we was going to beat Kansas City. I didn't really see us losing to Miami. I called the Jets because I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be there, and I thought that he was going to try to, because for some strange reason, when he plays at the link, he plays not that well, but we played the Jets, so I thought that he was going to try to, get some revenge. I had us losing to Seattle, and I had us losing probably the final game because we probably wouldn't needed that one. The 49ers, I had us winning by a close margin only at the time because I know my team and I know they are high on emotion, and they're going to let that play on the field. Even if they don't say that in the press conferences or anything like that, they're going to let that play on the field. So I had us going 14-3. Now, like I said, if we beat the Cowboys, beat you guys first, then beat the Cowboys, that makes us 12-1. All we have to do really is win possibly one more game to secure the number 1 seed. We win this game also, and I know that's in the back of some people's mind. We win this game, we secure a playoff spot because the Rams, I think they play somebody good. Honestly, I forgot I posted it before. And I think who else has to lose? Because we're not really talking about the Lions because the Lions, just lost on Thanksgiving. I don't think that they. Do you think they are elite? The Lions?
No. The only 2 elite teams are us and y'all right now. The Lions and Cowboys are a tier below. I think Chiefs, Bills, I was going to say Bengals, but they're not even in that conversation anymore. Ravens. I think the Ravens might be elite. Ravens defense. If the Niners defense isn't number 1, we're statistically number 1, but if we aren't the best D, then I would say it'd be the Ravens D. I obviously have Lamar, and he's playing a lot better with their new OC. So maybe us, y'all, and the Ravens in the elite category, and the Chiefs, Lions, and Cowboys a notch below. And then I can't think of another team in the AFC that's up there. The Jags, they're doing okay, but I don't think they're elite. Especially the way we smoked them.
How about the Dolphins?
No, they don't have the defense. No, their D is not. They do not have a championship defense.
Yeah.
No, the Dolphins and Chiefs are in this tier 2 with the Lions and Cowboys for me.
But at the end of the day, I just think that, like I said, this game is going to dictate a lot that's going to happen in NFC. It's going to dictate a lot that's going to happen, especially with the upcoming matchups that we both face. When y'all play the Ravens, are y'all home or are they home?
We're at Levi's on Christmas Day.
Okay.
So that should help, but again, could be raining. Well, I guess it could be raining anywhere outdoors.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is your 3 keys of victory against
get ahead early, be the front runners that we are, like get ahead early and hold on for the late surge that the Eagles have been having lately. I would just say there's some comments here about Purdy. That was the other thing about Trey Lance is like, yeah, Purdy was the last pick of the draft, but when he lost out to him, we had already seen what he could do, and now he's pretty easily arguable a top 10 QB in the league. So losing out to a top 10 QB, that doesn't make you a bad quarterback. It just makes you not a franchise quarterback. And with Trey Lance, I would just say not yet. So, but yeah, there's a lot to like. What is Kyle like? It's he Yes, why he loves Purdy so much? Yeah, because he trusts him, because he can call whatever he wants, and he knows Purdy's going to run it the right way, and he's going to make good decisions. He may not have the tools to execute properly, to throw it a million miles deep, or to throw a laser into tight coverage, or a laser off platform. But, other than those three things, Purdy can kind of do it all. And he's got elite quickness. Like I said, I always just said I wish he had an elite physical trait besides quickness, because, after he takes a few steps, he usually gets chased down from behind because he doesn't have top speed. So limited arm, limited height, limited top speed. And those are my concerns in order with Purdy. I wish he had a bigger arm than most. I wish he was a little bit taller next after that, and a little bit more top speed would be my third on the list of wishes if I had a genie to make Purdy into what I would consider a prototypical elite QB. But if Purdy leads a comeback from behind in the rain against the Eagles, I'm calling him elite. That's it. Those are my things that I've been worrying about. If he does that, then I got to start using the E word next week. We'll see.
So mine's is basically, you gotta contain CMC and also Brock Purdy. You can't give him no time to do any short passes, because this is what the game plan was before he got hurt in the NFC Championship. He was getting the ball out quickly, and it was working to perfection. He was like 4 for 4 before he got hurt.
Actually, one or two of those was after he got hurt. He shot putted it.
Okay.
Yeah, because he got hurt on the 5th play of the game. So
yeah, it was.
He only threw it twice before, and maybe twice after.
Also, man, this O-line has to play elite, man. We know the game against the Chiefs wasn't our greatest showing on offensive line. That offensive line has to play elite, and this is how we're going to utilize the run more. We're going to we know the pass rush of the 49ers is no joke. So we got to contain that, and also, just play off of Jalen Hurts. On defense, we got to shore up that middle of the field, man. They got George Kittle, if not number 1, number 2 tight end in the league. You got George Kittle over there. I don't know if they're going to sit up there and play George Kittle like we played Travis Kelce when we played against them, but that's basically the two I'm worried about. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle on offense. On defense, it's just that pass rush. I feel like that if Jalen Hurts has time in the pocket, then we could do some damage on offense. I don't know where he's going to go with the ball, but it's all about the game and executing at the end of the day. What is your final score of the game, though? If you had to give one.
2017 if it's dry, Niners. I'll flip it 17-20 if it's wet, Eagles. Real quick, I just wanted to somebody said Ted's a hater because he missed Trey Lance. Sad. That's bull. I don't hate Purdy. I said all along I like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What I hated was the hyperbole. Was Joe Montana, Steve Young, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, blah 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 blah. But the more he plays well, the less that is hyperbole. So, and the closer I get to call him elite, then then you have to start having these type of conversations. So it's changing, the Smitty. So I would just say that. And let's see. You were talking about you were talking about limiting Kittle and CMC, but that's the thing about our offense. It's a pick your poison offense. If you try and limit Kittle and CMC, like we're not the Chiefs, man. The Chiefs only have Kelce. He's their only elite weapon. Right. And I think Kittle, I'll tell you, is every bit as good as Kelce. If he was on the Chiefs, he would do everything Kelce does, plus yak and blocking. It's just that he's had, not great quarterbacks. Brian Hoyer, CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, Jimmy G, Trey Lance. I'll say it's because of inexperience, but he was never great. And then a little bit with Purdy. And with Purdy, we've seen some flashes where he had 7 TDs in the last 4 games last season. And Kittle had never had 7 TDs in a whole season, let alone 4 games in 5 seasons. And then, he had 3 against the Cowboys and 3 catches from Purdy. So, yeah, it's smart to want to limit him. He's doing some great things lately. There was a stat where he has like the most yards per route run of anyone in the NFL in the last few games, or maybe he's top 3 or something, but something crazy. Certainly top of all the tight ends. And but here's the thing about pick your poison offense, right? Because like I said, if you try and limit CMC and Kittle, then you bet your butt Debo and Ayuk are going to kill you, and maybe even Jennings too. But the way you deal with a poisonous snake is you chop the head off, right? So the way you deal with our pick your poison offense is you pressure Brock Purdy. Your D line is your best chance to do that, and that could very well be an issue, especially as I mentioned, the right side of our offensive line is a little bit suspect. McKivitz is a decent pass blocker, but Burford has struggled this season with blocking in with penalties. So that's if I'm telling the Eagles how to beat us, get that pressure on Purdy. He's good under pressure. And somebody said like, oh, the pressure's going to come and he'll lose his poise. He won't lose his poise because he just locks in downfield. But what might happen is he might get injured again, or sacked a bunch because he won't take his eyes off downfield to even look at who's coming to get him. He's fearless that way, and it's what we love about him. But it also scares the what out of us too, right? You can love it and be scared by it too.
No, I just think for the most part that with us it's more so, yes, you have to pick your poison offense, but on defense, I feel like our guys show up in these type of games. It's not always pretty, and this is what we're getting accustomed to in Philadelphia. Also, on top of that, you do have our slot corner that's going to be following some guys because he likes to play man a lot. Also, Darius Slay shows up in these big games, man, these big moments. But I'm like I said before, I'm looking at James Bradbury and seeing what he's going to do because guys called you out. Kevin Byard also, because Kevin Byard said it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a physical game. I already know it's going to be physical, all 4 quarters. So I just want to see how both teams react. And like my final score. Like I gave my final score, I said 20, 21, 20, 23 Eagles. I think it's going to be one of those type of games where if the Eagles actually show up and play good ball, because the numbers don't do them the justice. I know you guys are number 1 in defense, but at the same time, I think that we could be right there, especially if we put this all together.
We haven't played a lot of really good offenses either. So.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, that, this is going to be one of those games that it's going to be a coin flip. It's going to really be a coin flip. And we just got to see who's going to come out on top. But, of course, we're going to, for our respective team, is going to route for them on why they should win. But at the same time, I think that, Jalen Hurts is one of those guys that's going to figure it out on the field. And I think that just everybody's playing for him, it's going to make it much harder, even if the offensive line looks a little shaky, they're too crafty to not give up but to make running holes for our running backs, force a guy like Jalen Hurts. I just don't want to see a lot of QB draws. I don't want to see a lot of it. I want it to be called at the right times if we're going to use it. But we can't do that against a team like the 49ers because you're putting your quarterback at risk at the end of the day. So, it's just going to be a good matchup. I'm all for it.
Game of the year. No doubt about it. Real quick, let me do a quick commercial break. I have a sponsor called the Travelstead Group. They're retail and hospitality logistics. They do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. They do FFE, which is fixed furniture and equipment. They do OSE, which is operating supplies and equipment. They do new store openings, rollouts, relocations, decommissions. From the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between, Travelstead has you covered. Let them know how they can help you via air, ocean, or land. They do closed-loop solutions for retail and hospitality. Nick and Henry are the go-to guys there. They have 100% U.S.-based support. So, these are complex operations. There's always fine-tuning and sometimes snafus. It's great to know that you're not going to end up in some call center overseas where they have no clue what you or your business do. The website is in the description of the show, my YouTube About page, my Twitter bio, Insta and Facebook. If you follow me there, click the link, check out the video, and be sure you tell them Ted sent you. So thanks for letting me pay the bills there, DV. I appreciate it. But I have a new sponsor since we last spoke. So Freddie was saying that Purdy plays. I don't get the jitters like Jimmy did. Purdy's the real deal, period. And he also said Steve Young even thinks so. And I agree. I said all season, even when I was, kind of had him in the mid category, that he's a mental giant. He's the real deal mentally. It's just the physical limitations. I think that they're going to pop up again. I'm not going to lie. And until they don't for a while, I mean, that's why, and people are mad at me like, oh, Ted, why do you change his ranking every week? I'm like, well, he's been up and down this season. There's been a lot of volatility, and he has a very small body of work. So, it made sense to me to change the ranking every week. Once he plays a little more consistently and has a bigger body of work, then it won't be so volatile. But as of right now, I have him at between 5 and 8 in the league, which is starting to get into that elite category. Someone said, well, isn't 5 to 8 elite? I said, well, 6, 7, and 8 aren't. So no. But that's where I am. I've been up and down all season. Like I said, it was 14 to 18 before the season started out the Giants. I did 11 to 15 after the Cards. I said 8 to 12 after the Cowboys, 6 to 9 after the Browns. I bumped them back up to 8 to 12. I would have done 11 to 15 after the Vikings, but like I said, that concussion came before the interception, so I left them at 8 to 12. After the Bengals, I said 11 to 15, and then he started playing well again, right? Jags, I said 8 to 12. Bucks, I said Jags, 8 to 12. Bucks, I guess I was 6 to 9, and then now with the Seahawks, back to this time for the first time 5 to 8 in the league. So. That's sort of what I've been doing with it. And some people are like, oh, you shouldn't rank them. And I'm like, like I said, I try and take all these factors into account: our weapons, our coaching, our defense, and compare that to other QB situations when I talk about elite. And I have Purdy, Jalen, and Lamar all knocking on that elite moniker. So could all be there by the end of the season or by the end of the week. Who knows?
Yeah. What did he say? How many turnovers Jalen Hurts has? Turnovers wise, yeah, he has about 13, 14 turnovers. It hasn't been good.
I think 2 for Jalen and 1 for Brock is what I think. If it's dry.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a clean game from Jalen. I think if anything, it would probably be a tip pass if it's an interception or something like that. And that's if he doesn't go with the game plan. If he doesn't go with the game call and he kind of do his own thing from Brian Johnson, then I think that he'll be okay. Now, I think it's where the confusion and indecisiveness come in with Jalen Hurts is where he causes those turnovers like a fumble or, a tip pass, whereas though the wide receiver and him is not on the same page because he just made a change. It's indecisiveness. So I think that, it's nothing like that to worry about. It's more so, his execution at this point. You can't take away the turnovers, just like you said. The interception thing is skewed because of the way that tip passes or receivers don't run the right route. It's things that come into fruition with that. It's not Jalen Hurts is not one of those quarterbacks that throw a receiver open. It's more as though the route run, he's going to place the ball where it needs to go. He's not going to, make it open, even though, that was a hell of a pass to Olamide Zaccheaus in the backfield, whereas though only he could jump up and get it. And he basically made that play happen off of him just being able to prolong the play. But yeah, Jalen Hurts is one of those guys that he's dangerous. He's very dangerous. If he's beating you with his legs and he's beating you with his arms, it's going to be hard to climb out of that hole. I don't think this is going to be a game where we are up by a lot. It's more so that overcoming the mistakes and limiting our no turnovers, making sure that we take care of the ball. It's going to be rainy. Or the field is going to be wet, I should say, because we really don't know. A 60% chance of rain, but some weather channels basically saying it's going to be cloudy. So we just got to see how it is by Sunday. Overall, I just think it's going to be a decent game, man. I think that this game is going to
could be the game of the year.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Because they were saying that the Bills game was, but now this might overshadow
Bills
that.
D is too dinged up. They lost Trey White against the Dolphins. They lost Milano and Daquan Jones against the Jags, and then I think they lost even more of their corners since then. They got Rasul Douglas, but come on, he's no star. So
no, man, he got
Drew Johnson in the house.
What's going on, Drew? What's going on?
Goat boy. Goat boy. Cloudy in Philly. My Apple. Apple's pretty good. I like Apple weather for at least for here for Levi's. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I just hope it's always sunny in Philadelphia. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We've pretty much covered it all, right? I feel like I don't want to keep any longer. Also, I want to get out with my son and go run the RC cars a little bit here before I got a 12:45 show with Shane Half. That'll be 3:45 Eastern.
Okay.
So I think it's like my 5th or 6th Eagles content creator this week. I'm eagled out, man. But also, all right. So here's a couple things. One is if you want to come on next week, let's lock it down before the game so that way, like, it's always tougher to lock somebody down when their team loses, right? So let's lock that down before the game if you want to do that. And then also let's root for. We can't root for each other, obviously, but we can root for a really good game. We can root for no refs and no injuries, right? No bad calls, no injuries. I think those are. If I have to hear "Mind of a Freaking Center" one more time, DV, I swear to God, I'm going to strangle Greg Olson. Reach the knee and just strangle him because that Lane Johnson, false starting. He's like, oh, he's got the mind of a center. And the NFC Championship, he's setting it in the Super Bowl. I was like, good Lord. Good Lord have mercy.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be the commentator of that game. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Here we go. All right, Greg Olson, you better do better. Anyway, DB, thanks for coming on. At King DB Sports. You can find them there at Twitter and X and YouTube. The YouTube channel link is in the description below. Always a pleasure. And I'll just say peace and go Niners. You want to give us a fly, Eagles fly?
Fly, go Birds. You already know.
Good luck. It's Set versus us, my friend.
All right, you too.
Cheers.